When were you diagnosed? What age?
About 6 weeks of age, because I was malnutritioned. I didn't have a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And then they just did the sweat test and pretty quickly found out I had cystic fibrosis.
And it was pretty bad. I mean, they didn't expect you to live very long, did they?
No, I was born in '82, so in the early '80s, there wasn't much known about cystic fibrosis, and it wasn't an adult disease as such, because not a lot of people reached adulthood. So my life expectancy when they diagnosed me was about 2 years.
Wow. OK, gosh.
So what was early life? Because thankfully you made it through that, quite obviously. So what was early life like?
I remember a lot of hospital visits when I was little, a lot of antibiotics, a lot of treatment. But as I grew into sort of school age, it got much better. My lungs developed and I had treatment. My parents were very strict on me doing all that physio and nebulizers. So I was quite well into my teens. I did a lot of sports and I didn't know a lot of other cystic fibrosis patients. So I grew up comparing myself to my healthy friends in sports competitions.
So there was a moment when this changed, though. And so you get to your teens and then you're 15 and something happened that made you consider registering at Dignitas for the first time. So what was it then? What changed? What made you make that choice?
I went off to Belgium to sort of a physio camp with other cystic fibrosis patients, teenagers or young adults. And for the first time in my life, I saw people who were poorly, way poorlier than me, that had oxygen tanks to carry around, and that scared me at 15. I had never seen that. I knew in my head what CF was and where it would lead and the circumstances, but seeing it was very different. And I was also, you know, a teenager, very black and white and very, this is not how I want to live, and I will live my life intensely, but shortly if I have to. And I did not want to be that ill. I did not want to suffer like that. I did not want to depend on other people like that, you know, being helped around in the house, not being able to make a cup of tea on my own. So I thought, no, I'm going to live, you know, intensely and happily, but once I decide I don't want to do this and I start suffering from CF, I want to be able to say no, thank you.
You mentioned the word Dignitas, which is, you know, for a daughter saying to her parents, is going to horrify them. And your mother was very upset, wasn't she?
Yes, he was.
Dad was more matter of fact.
Yes, correct. My dad was very brilliant and talked to me about this and showed me Dignitas and talked to me about more the factual side of things and said, look, if you ever need this, I will be there for you and I will take you there and I will hold your hand.
Well, you decided there and then, OK, that's an option. We'll park that for the moment, because you lived your life to the full. You travelled, and yes, it was a struggle sometimes, but it was falling in a river that once again the world spun for you.
Yes, because I was, again, in my adulthood, I would be OK, but, you know, you have infections and you get better, but not quite as back to where you were, and that happens. That is the CF. And then I had a few bad winters. So I caught swine flu, unfortunately. The next winter, I tried to rescue my dog, who I thought was drowning, from a river and fell in myself. That was in December, so it was very cold, and had hypothermia and resulted in pneumonia, which is, again, tough on my lungs. And then I noticed, look, this is getting to a point where I'm starting to struggle in my everyday life. You know.
And then Dignitas was mentioned again.
Yeah.
And seriously, because you enrolled.
Yes, yeah. I took the membership because with Dignitas, and rightfully so, you don't sign up and can go tomorrow. You know, so there is a process which is good, and it should be like that.
Many people we watch this saying, did you consider at this point, before enrolling with Dignitas, a transplant may be an option?
The issue I had was I didn't know anyone who had a successful transplant. I had never seen anyone, and I didn't know what life could be like after transplant. So the hope was only, in theory, there. So I thought, and you know, there's no guarantee. So you have to approach transplant. You approach a window of where you are getting ill, but you can't miss the window of transplant either, because if you're too ill, you're not eligible anymore.
Yeah.
So I could not see myself suffering through a lot of illness to maybe not have the chance, not maybe get those lungs.
And for it maybe not to be successful as well, because there's no guarantee that you'll
It's very scary, you know, you have those lungs, which in my case didn't work well anymore. I had 11% lung function. That's not a lot. yet they were my lungs and I knew them. It's an unknown territory after transplant. You don't know. You don't know these lungs. You don't know the life.
Well, you were assessed, and because you're tall, they said you could actually take the lungs of a donor who's a male or female. There's incredibly wonderful, selfless people who do these things for us. Never enough donors. And so the donor lungs become available, and you go into hospital, and you have a very long but successful operation, so you do have the transplant. What was it like when you opened your eyes and took that breath?
I can't almost describe it. It's a sense of freedom and hope and a possible future that you never had before.